Hi guys, welcome to Short Skirts and Sarcasm. I'm Caroline and this video is about all the books that I love with sisters at the heart of it and sister relationships, etc. And the reason I thought to make this video is because one of my friends tweeted that she wanted book recommendations with sister relationships at the heart of it, and she's a diehard Little Women fan. Ambulances have no respect for my filming schedule. How rude. So I thought that since I had essentially compiled a list to send to her of book recommendations with sisters, I would tell the rest of you as well. So I'm going to go through these in alphabetical order as per usual. And first up, I have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this is a YA book written in verse. And I read this earlier this year, and I really loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. It is about two girls who are half sisters but don't know it. One living in New York City and the other one in the Dominican Republic, and their shared father dies in a plane crash, and they find out about each other and then visit each other and sort of like discover each other and discover parts of their dad they thought they knew and didn't know, and bond over that. And it's a really nice story. I really enjoyed it. Next up is the Sisters of Literature classic Little Women, and I am sure that everyone is aware of the plot of Little Women, but essentially it is a story about four sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, and they are living in, I can't remember where they're living, but somewhere in the northeastern bit of the US during the American Civil War, and they make friends with the lonely only child in the mansion in their neighborhood, Lori. It's just like a really nice, comforting, wholesome story about sister relationships. Next up, less wholesome, is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyin Kim Braithwaite, and this is about a nurse who has a sister who is a serial killer. She gets into relationships and then eventually she kills the guy she's with and calls her sister, the nurse, to help clean up her crime scene. And this is a really short book. I read it in like a day, I think, and it's very page-turny, a lot of like claustrophobic feeling, because essentially the main character, the nurse, has a crush on one of her co-workers, and then he starts dating her sister. And I had no idea where this was going, and so it's just like short but somehow still full of surprises. Next up, another sister classic, Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, and it's about two sisters who were raised by their aunts after their parents die, and they're all witches, and they're essentially polar opposites. They grow up, one leaves the small New England town they grew up in and travels around the US, and the other one stays and wants to raise a family in her hometown. And it's, again, just like wholesome and cute, and you're probably familiar with the movie, so I think if you like the movie, you'll also like the book. Next, I have The Bastard of Istanbul by Edip Shafak. This is about a household of women, mostly sisters. It's four sisters, their mom, and their step-grandma, and then the daughter of one of the sisters. And our story starts because the brother of all the sisters, who lives in the US, has a stepdaughter who is Armenian American, and she wants to find out more about her history, and so she contacts her stepfather's family in Istanbul and asks to come visit. And it's a really like beautiful story of sisterhood and finding friendships and like opposites attracting, and understanding like personal and family history. And the writing is beautiful. I'm sure I've said before, like, this is my favorite book, and I've read it probably 5 times. I did read it earlier this year as well, again. So I can say with certainty it does hold up, and it's still a fave. Next, I have a Sisters series, and that is the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Act Your Age, Eve Brown. And they're all delightful romances, each centering on one of the sisters in this like group of sisters. And it is mostly about the individual sisters' like romances with whoever happens to be in that book. But through that, you can really see that they have a really close bond and like respect each other, love each other, help each other out, and lift each other up. And it's just all around really nice to read. I read all of them this year, and I am eagerly awaiting being able to read them again. Next up, The Care and Feeding of Ravenously Hungry Girls by Anissa Gray. And this is a story of 3 sisters, and the oldest one sort of acts as like a replacement mother after I think their parents die, but they're all adults. The oldest one has twin teenage daughters, and then she and her husband go to prison, and it's left to the other 2 sisters to step in and raise the twins. So it's like 2 sets of sisters. It's an intergenerational family drama, and you go like back in time to when the mom and the aunts were younger, and then you also explore the past of the twins, who I think are identical. I can't remember. I read it like almost exactly a year ago, and I've forgotten everyone's name, but like the core of the story has like really stayed with me, and I would absolutely read this again. It was a 5-star read. Next up, another heavy emotional book, The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And in this one, it's about a sister relationship, a sister bond. However, like, because the main character has been trapped in this abusive marriage, she cannot see her sister. She doesn't know what her sister is doing, and she writes letters to God. And over like the course of the book, you do finally get to see like what her sister has been up to, and then how they try to get back in contact. A lighter edition on this Sisters series video is the Jewel Kingdom books by Jonna and Malcolm. And this is a series of children's books. So, and it's a fantasy series about 4 sisters who are the daughters of the king and queen of the Jewel Kingdom. And when they're old enough, they are each given a like sector of the kingdom to rule. And so each book like centers on one of them, and there isn't always like a whole lot of interaction between the sisters, but you can see that like they're all very close, and they work together to try to like rule this kingdom for their or with their parents. And it's just like cute and wholesome cottagecore vibes. There's, you know, some fairies, and there's a dragon. Next up, I have the Makayoko Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki, and this again centers on 4 sisters in the 1930s in Japan. The older 2 sisters are married, and the younger 2 sisters are not, and this is essentially like a book in vignettes, but the overarching plot of it is trying to marry the 2 younger sisters off to suitable men. And it comes with certain challenges. It's like a nice domestic story of like sisters and sisterhood, and 3 of them actually live together, so they're just like together all the time and play off each other, and it's just a really, really beautiful and beautifully written book. Next up, I have The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, and I read this earlier this year, and I liked it so much because I got it from the library that I did buy myself a physical copy. And as you can see, it's pretty big. It's like 500 something pages, but this is a book about estranged sisters who haven't seen each other in years and were raised by their like witchy grandmother, and then they all reconverge at a women's suffrage protest in 1893, and the story goes from there. And the writing style is really unique. I really enjoyed it. I do understand that if like some people might not enjoy it as much, but essentially it's sisters and witchy vibes, and in my opinion those things can do no wrong. Then I've got Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and this is another one that I read earlier this year and really, really enjoyed it. And this is about identical twin sisters who both leave their small town Black community and venture out into the wider world. And one of them marries a white man and chooses to live her life passing as a white woman in Southern California, and the other one chooses to stay in her community. And they both have daughters, and so you go back in time, and the first timeline is the twins and their relationship to each other and with their mom, and then you see them separate and they have relationships with their daughters, and then the daughters come together and they have you can see like the blossoming of their relationship together. And I won't spoil the rest of it for you because I had no idea where it was going. I was like, tell me more, what's happening? And so I read this one really quickly as well. Then a creepy sisters book, The Water Cure by Sophie McIntosh. And this is about three sisters who were raised in what kind of feels like a religious cult by their parents. So it's like a family cult. And a lot of it has to do with water and using water to purify yourself. And a lot of it that's like purification is just abuse. So like trigger warnings for that. And eventually their parents leave them and it's just the three of them alone on this island. And then two men and a boy show up and things get weird. Next up, a triplet story, Three Wishes by Leanne Moriarty. And what I've noticed that all of Leanne Moriarty's books that I've read have like identical twins or identical multiples in them somewhere. And this one, there are triplets at the center of it. Two of them are identical, one of them is not. And we see them grow up, get into relationships, get out of relationships, maybe have kids, maybe not. There's a lot of like fighting and there's a lot of like wholesome sister content. And it's a wild ride. And you know from the beginning, like each chapter starts with an observation about all three of them by like a stranger. So we never actually meet these strangers. It's just these like descriptions at the beginning of each chapter. So the first one is a description of like people like out enjoying a nice dinner, and then these triplets also look like they're having a nice birthday dinner, and then they start fighting and throwing forks at each other. And so you know it's going to be a wild ride from the beginning, and I think this is my favorite Leanne Moriarty book so far. And last, another sisters classic, Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And this isn't a typical sisters book, this is a stepsisters book. And it's about two girls of similar age who become stepsisters after their late middle age parents get married when they're in their early adolescence. And so there's definitely like growing pains. They are polar opposites but get along well, so there's like a lot of like old-timey wholesome sisters content. And because it's sort of set in the 1830s, there's like a very pastoral, almost Austen-esque vibe to it. And there's a lot of nature and proper house calls and hats and beautiful clothes. And if you kind of want to like escape and at least feel like you're in a simpler time, then I would definitely recommend this book. And it has a happy ending, as I think all Elizabeth Gaskell novels do. And it's just like an all-around wholesome fun time. So that's it, all of my sisters books. I hope you enjoyed these, and if you have read any of these and like them or have any more sisters content you would like to recommend to me, please leave a comment below. You can like this video, you can follow me for more videos, you can also follow me on social media. Everything is linked in the description box, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!